And start introducing the next book. It looks like this. After we talk today, I won't need to bring this up again. So you got almost a week to prepare for it. We are in 11 honors lit, and we're reviewing Rodad today. Some quotes for the test next week. I said, what I'm going to do, I'm going to give you page numbers just to double check, and I'm going to put them in order, okay? I don't know that I would ever ask you to do it, but I think this is a book. People get in trouble if they don't remember the order of events. Whenever you write, I've had papers written where they put the effect before the cause. They talk about something happening, and they confuse those things in the order. It's important. So these are the page numbers. I don't know if you wrote those down. The first one is page 58. You can go back and this might help you. The second one is page 93. The third one, page 80. The fourth one, page 130. This is the last page of the book. The next one, I wish I had numbered them, but anyway, the next one is page 130 as well. It's the same page. So that was the fifth one. The sixth one, page 84. He had performed his mistakes. Page 65 for the next one, the rifles. Page 61 for I bet you think, or I bet you got a worser one. Page 67 for the return to the creed of soldiers. Page 129 for the next to last one, and page 130 for the last one. That may help you. And so let me just put them in order. The first one, the red sun, that is the first one. Again, the order is important because if you're going to talk about the events, one causing another. So the first one is number 1. The second one yesterday is number 7. The third one, When to Youth, is number 5. The fourth one, Over the River, is number 11, which is, I think, the last line in the book. The next one is number 10. He had been to touch the great death. That's also in that same page. The next one he had performed, as number 6. The next one is number 3. I bet you got a worser one, is number 2. If you flip it, the Creed of Soldiers, he returned, that's number 4. And the last two are 8 and 9. Somehow that could be helpful to you. What I'd like to do for a few minutes anyway is talk about the importance of these, the context and importance. I really want you to know what they mean, and so we did the first one. Let's look at the second. The first one, remember, anybody want to remind me? Si, you got the first one there. The red sun, that's the most important line in the story. So what does it mean? What's the context?
It's after Jim's death.
Right.
And the context is like Henry is he's kind of like growing as a person after that because he's realizing he feels bad for Jim. He's upset that Jim's dead.
Yeah.
And he's caring for someone that isn't just him.
Right. And what does the red sun and the sky and the wafer point to? Yes.
Is it communion?
Right. And that would remind us that Jim is what in the book?
The criteria.
In what way?
That he died to show Henry how to be braver, I guess. He died for Henry to learn how to be a soldier.
So you said he died for him, right? He died as an example to him. A kind of a substitutionary death like Christ. Christ died for all, and this way Jim died for one. his death is going to change Henry's life. The second one, how about it, Julian? Why don't you read it?
Yesterday he had imagined the universe to be against him. He hated it, little gods and big gods. Today he hated the army of the foe with the same great hatred. And wasn't it the narrator that said that?
Yeah.
And I said Henry and his view on life and war and how, or Henry and his view on life and war have changed, and how he dislikes the Confederates.
That's the second part, right? Now he hates the enemy. But what did he do before this? It says he imagined the universe to be against him. He hated it, little gods, big gods. Yeah, Jeff.
At first, after his first encounter, he hated pretty much everyone, his own army too.
Yeah.
He thought they were fools.
All right, good. Anything else about that? How do you hate the universe? He said he hated the universe, big gods and little gods. Well, you said he hated, what'd you say, just about everybody?
Yeah.
No, you put
well,
it-
maybe not hate his own army, but he definitely thought they were fools and that they were stupid for what they were doing. So
Yeah.
he felt really. I guess he said the universe was against him because he felt alone.
Yes.
He didn't feel like he was with anyone else.
Right. God doesn't love me. The world doesn't. I'm a loser. It's like the ultimate pity party when you get to this point. You think the whole world's against you. Nobody likes me. Everybody hates me. You know, it's ridiculous. But now he took that same anger and he funneled it, focused it onto what he should be angry at. Anger's okay if it's focused in the right direction. And it's, you know, it's appropriate. So that's really important. That's how he changed. He now knows who he is. He's a soldier, and he hates those guys that kill my best friend and are shooting at me. All right, 3. How about it, Lillian? Would you read it?
When the youth awoke, it seemed to him that he had been asleep for 1,000 years.
Oh, I'm sorry. Before we didn't say the context, I don't think made that clear. This is right before he begins to fight again. This is the second day of battle when he's really on the front lines again. Well, yes, it's literally the same page that he becomes a hero. All right, so, sorry, go ahead, tell us.
When the youth awoke, it seemed to him that he had been asleep for 1,000 years. And the narrator said this, and it was just after Henry had awakened from hitting his head with the gun. This other soldier had hit him in the head of the gun, so he was kind of knocked out on the ground for a while. And then this could be a reawakening literally or metaphorically, because he did literally wake up, but he also woke up being braver and more willing to fight the battle.
And what were some of the factors and the fact that he woke up and he's kind of a new person? What are some of the factors and why does he feel like a new person, Jeff?
Well, he quite literally woke up.
Yes.
Not just physically, but
Right.
after he was hit, it kind of put him in the perspective of what was really happening. So he had like a newfound duty, I guess, to be a soldier and be brave.
And part of that, and I think this is important, is that he got away with it. Remember, he woke up and he felt like nobody knows I'm a coward, like it didn't happen. And so I'm good to go. I have a second chance. He's never really been punished for the first one, and it's this feeling of relief. Yeah, I can try it again. I've been given a second chance. I'm a new person. He's not really, because you can't really become a new person unless you deal with the past, and he hasn't done that yet. But that's what makes so. That it's literally the next day too. It's a new day, as you said. How about Jackson, the fourth one?
Oh, the fourth one. Over the river, a golden ray of sun came through the hosts of wind, rain, clouds. I said this was said by the narrator, and the context was the rain in the battle had ended, and then the meaning of it is the rain was nice after a bloody war.
Yeah, and what does rain, Ms. Kay probably talked to you about that, what does rain often represent in literature? They call them archetypes, what? Well, I didn't hear you.
Life.
Okay, I like that answer, particularly new life and cleansed life, you know, and it actually can represent death too, because, you know, you get plunged underwater, symbolizing dying, and your old person, the sinful man, is dead. Now you come out of the water, and you are a changed person. So that's good. The rain does represent a cleansing and new life, and it's literally the last line of the whole book. And I gave you there are three lines that talk about the sun, and the red sky is one, and this is the other. I don't think I put all three on here, but this would be the second one that talk about the sun. And now it's a different kind of sun. It's not a red sun. It's not the death of Jim Conklin. It's a new life that he has. That's really important. How about Tucker? How about he had been to touch?
This was said by the narrator, and this was just saying, you know, he survived the war. He was that close to death, and he made it out. He was a man.
Yes, but what does he mean when he said it was but, he found out that it was but the great death? Like, he touched the great death and found that it was, that's all it was the great, what do you mean that's all it was?
He has to keep living. Maybe.
Okay. Anything else about what he learned about death? Yes.
That you shouldn't fear it?
Yes, because it's not as big as he thought it was. It's not as bad as he thought it was. In fact, today, when he fights, and I wish I'd put some of these in here, I like the idea, this is the kind of person I want to be. One of my sons was a baseball player, and he says he wants to go out, he wants to live his life, and when he goes out, he wants to go out sliding into home base, face down with his hand out. You know, that's how he wants to end. You know, he doesn't want to end, you know, a call strike 3 where you just have to go sit back in the dugout or something like that. He wants to be heading home. He wants to get down in the dirt, and he wants to slide in that way. I like that attitude. You know, and in this book, one of the attitudes Henry has is bullets became obstacles. They weren't things to be afraid of. They were things, that bullet's going to keep me from killing that guy over there. I'm not scared of dying. I'm not scared of hurting. I just don't want to be prevented from getting to that enemy. That's the good attitude of a soldier. Bullets are obstacles. They're not certain death. They could be, but so he's become a man because now he's faced his problems and he puts them in perspective. How about this one, Robbie? He had performed.
He performed mistakes in the dark, so he was still in. The context behind this one is like all like the coward moves and like things Henry had done, nobody knew about.
Right.
And so he was still technically a man. He wasn't a coward, and nobody knew about anything. So.
But what's the irony of that statement?
Well, it's saying he did it in the dark, so like, it's just he did it behind, so nobody knew.
Right.
Like,
And so it's ironic, that doesn't make you a man, right? Just because people don't know you did it, doesn't mean you didn't do it. And just because they don't know you're a coward, doesn't mean you're not a coward. So he still thinks if you get away with it, you're okay. When the problem is, you won't always get away. I mean, it'll eventually show up, and he couldn't run away from it. How about Si?
Well, rifles could be had for the picking. They were extraordinarily profuse. This was the narrator talking, and it was when Henry was sort of looking for an out to not get back in the fight, telling himself, oh, there's no weapon, like I have nothing to fight with.
You hear what Si just said? He gave the context. He said it happened when. and that's what I'm asking for, so I like that. He was debating, it was after Jim died, it was after he left the tattered soldier, before he got hit in the head, so he was, you're right, making excuses. I didn't mean to interrupt you, I just wanted to point that out. Anything you wanna add to what it means?
It's just sort of the, like, internal conflict. He's not, like, he's still sort of like the coward.
Yeah.
But he's taking steps towards being that hero that he wanted to be, that he eventually does become later.
But not completely.
Right.
It takes the hit, knock on the head and the cheery soldier to force him to do what he really wasn't able to decide to do on his own. Let's go back to he had been to touch the great death. That's the last page of the book. So the context is, the same context is what I guess Jackson did, the golden ray of the sun. The context is he became a hero, he had overcome, faced all these things. So that's, and then the context of he had performed his mistakes in the dark. We have, Robbie already pointed out, that's when he got back, that night after he got back to his unit. And so that's what we mean by context. How about the last one on the page, Emma? I bet you got a worser one.
That's when he's walking with all the injured soldiers, and it's this tattered soldier asking him if he's been shot, and saying that the worst one is on the inside.
And so what's the kind of the meaning behind it?
It's not that he was actually shot, it's the injury is in his heart, and he's feeling guilty.
And it's ironic because the person who says it doesn't know that, right? We know it, and Henry knows it, but the person speaking it doesn't know that it's guilt is the wound. Jeff, have you done one? You did one, didn't you? Have you done one, Jeff?
I commented on one I didn't do
All right,
before this.
we'll do the return to the creed of soldiers.
I said this was after, he encountered the dead man in the forest, and he turned back, to go back to his regiment, I think.
Well, it is after that, but it's a long time after. It's not immediately after that.
Okay.
The context would be more like the one that Sa had. Well, rifles could be had for the picking. It's in that part of the book after Henry dies and after he leaves the tattered soldier. Yeah.
Is it gonna go to the document?
Yeah. So make sure you understand, this is another part. He still hasn't returned yet. It's that limbo between those two things. But what does it mean?
Well, I don't know if I got a real meaning out of it, but I was just basically saying he was kind of getting back to where the action was, or at least getting back away from where he was just dwelling with himself.
It is, you're right, that is part of it. Anyone want to add anything? I have something to add to that. All right, yeah,
Was this when he was going to the tattered soldiers?
he just left that, and he's wandering the battlefield and looking for it. He's making excuses for not going back to his unit, and the one that sided was about the rifles. He didn't have a rifle. Oh, really? They're all over the place. That can't be an excuse. One of his excuses was that he thought that his army was gonna lose. And if he lost, what is that gonna do for him? If his army loses, then how does that make him look? Smart. Why is he smart?
Because he ran away from a losing battle.
Yeah, the generals didn't even see it coming. I saw it coming and I got away. But he realizes they can't lose. That it's not possible to lose. And the creed of soldiers is just that your army is going to win. That's what had been drilled into him for weeks and weeks. And when he realized he's still making another excuse, I hope we lose, he realized they can't lose. So he had to return to the creed of soldiers. We're not going to lose. I'll be found out that I'm a coward, I'm a goner. All of that is a part of it. How about it, Julian? A specter.
A specter of reproach came to him. There loomed the dogging memory of the tattered soldier, who, blinded with weariness and pain, had been deserted in the field. And I said that was the narrator who said that.
Yes.
said, Henry's remembering the tattered soldier's condition and how it made him feel, and it's playing into his mentality in war and like helping change how he actually feels about war.
Yes. How did he handle the fact? Now, this is the next to last page of the book, so it's after he's become a hero and all that. Yeah, what were you gonna ask, Jeff?
I think he feels really guilty about
Yeah.
how he treated the tattered soldier.
He does.
After he kind of led the regiment in that last battle, he was kind of congratulating himself for that, but then he also remembered how he was really guilty about the tattered soldier too.
Good. And can we add one more thing? What did he do with that guilt at this point? You remember what he did?
Fuel?
He what?
He used it for fuel. That was a battle.
Well, this is after the battle. So let me read a line I could have included. Yet gradually he mustered force to put the sin at a distance, and at last his eyes seemed to open to some new ways. So the important thing about that is he's sorry he did it. He's never really sorry he ran away from the battle. He never really says that. He's sorry he got caught. He's sorry to get caught. He's sorry that they won. There are a lot of things he's sorry about, but he's never sorry for the thing that he did. Have you ever just confessed about something? Of course you have. But do you ever remember how it felt when you finally fessed up to something? You know, you did it. I did it. I'm guilty. Can anybody remember that might have felt kind of good to do that? In the movie, I don't think it's in the book, but Henry Fleming tells Wilson is confession is good for the soul. And I think that's part of this, is that when you confess it, it feels so much better than when you hide it. Even though you're getting punishment, that punishment is so much, their punishment is actually easier than your punishment. The punishment you were putting on yourself, that really hurts. The guilt and the fear of getting caught. And now that it's out there, there's no more fear of getting caught. You got caught. And you realize that the punishment wasn't as bad as you thought it was. But there's still another thing. He puts it behind him. Once you've confessed and mean it, then you don't have to worry about it anymore. You don't want to do it anymore. You don't want to run anymore in this case. But he doesn't let it define who he is. He doesn't let it he puts it behind him. So I think that's part of growing up. You've made some mistakes, I sure did. And if you confess them and admit to it, maybe even get punished for it, then you forget it. You know, okay, I'm moving on. I'm not going back there. And so I think that's a factor. And Jameson, this is actually, I forgot that, read the next one. It'll support what I just said.
Yet gradually he mustered force to put the sin at a distance, and at last his eyes seemed to open to some new ways. He found that he could look back upon the brass embalments of his earlier Gospels and see them truly. He was gleeful when he discovered that he now despised them. And I didn't exactly know the context of it.
It's literally right after that last statement.
Oh,
It's just a few
okay.
paragraphs later, and it's on the last page of the book. What sin is he talking about, and why is this important? And I think we just said it, so I forgot that statement was there. You remember?
Yeah.
So what is the importance of this? Once you've confessed something and dealt with it, what's the mature way to deal with it?
Move on.
Move on. I mean, you can't move on if you've never dealt with it. You can't just act like it didn't happen. I'm not going to. If you've dealt with it, confessed it, then he moves on. And how does it make him feel? Gleeful. He says he was gleeful to discover he now despised what he did. If you ever had that experience, I think that's really important. What it said there. That, you know, when I did that, I wish I could go back and not do that. I wish I weren't that person then. but that's over, can't do anything about it. I'm not that guy anymore, I just wanna move on. And I think that's incredibly important in growing up, which is part of what this book is about. The last thing I'll say, there will be a question, an essay type question. A lot of it will be true, false, multiple choice, like the Huck-Finn test, but there will, and a few short answers. I can't make it too long, but I would like to put a question in which you discuss that. We may even separate. I may decide that, like we did with Huck-Finn, we'll just write a separate essay about that, but be prepared to do it here. But I may change my mind. And the question would be, what does this book teach us about growing up? What is it? What's the lesson in this book about what has to happen? And truly, the last thing, and I don't know if anybody wants to share it. Remember I asked you at the beginning, have you had an experience that you can look back on and say, up to this point in your life, age 17, it made you grow up? Have you had an experience that you can say, that made me more of an adult, that made me grow up? I think I mentioned high school sports did that to me. I wasn't a believer, but it was so difficult that I felt when it was over, it was kind of like I'd grown up. He treated us like men, and we didn't coddle us, didn't make it easy, and it was hard. And when it was over, I felt really good about myself. Like I've done something, I've accomplished something. I think everybody's gonna have them. All right, so that's for next Thursday. I really don't need to say anything else. What I'd like to finish up with, I just have a few notes here, just save us some time Monday. I'm gonna give you a new book Monday, so don't be confused while we're reading Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Don't be confused with that. It's completely different. There's nothing similar about the two books. But I do want you to make sure you're studying next week for this. Any last questions about did you like it? I've never really had students say they really liked it. And it's really short. It's not hard to read. You'd think, it has all the components. Yeah, I love that book. It's real short. But I don't know what it is. I've come to like it. I don't know if I liked it when I first read it, but I'll like it after reading the whole thing and putting it together.
I didn't think it would have such a emphasis on his emotion.
Yeah, it's not just about war, which it is, but it's also about the others. I'm gonna get you started here on this Dr. Jekyll. Have any of you ever seen a movie? Because there have been a number of movies made of this. Have any of you ever read the book? So, you which is it? Have you seen a movie? Have you seen the movie or read the book? Really? Have you read the book? Where did you read it? Just on your own?
Yeah, like fourth grade, I think.
What?
In my fourth grade.
Really? Was that here? Okay. Yeah, that's it's not hard to read. Robert Louis Stevenson wrote for children. This is not a children's book at all. In fact, some people call it, although the character is not really a serial killer, but some people say that it was like the first book ever written by someone like a serial killer who enjoyed hurting other people, which is part of the book. You two know, anybody else? Okay, so there's a mystery here that you may already know the answer to. I don't want to too soon give it away. The name of the book is Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So we'll just leave it at that.
John?
That's why it's so easy.
I know, that's what he does, I don't want you to dig your proposals. Wild.
Dude, I mean, like, he's a terrible guy. He's pretty smart though. I mean,
Most of yours are, most people are really kind of.
like, it's bad. It's not impressive. That's not the right word.
Yeah.
But it's kind of
What-
like,
what-
it's interesting. Not impressive.
He did all that with Lydia.
All right, here's some things that you're gonna need to know about it. I think it's useful. It will be a test, it always is. And these questions, anytime the teacher says these are things we're gonna cover, that would be a great study habit, is to write them down, because then now you'll know exactly what the teacher is expecting you to know. Robert Louis Stevenson was an unusual person. You'll find out about that. He wrote several books. We need to look at that. He traveled a lot. He wrote travel books. And, of course, you'll find out when and where he was born. So here's some questions. I only see a couple of you writing them down, but I don't wanna, and so I don't wanna leave it. And you always need to know why or how important an author is. Like, is he one of the great all-time authors? The answer is no. He did what he did really well, but he doesn't rank up there even with the novelists of the period. And no novelist ranks up there with the poets of English history, like Shakespeare and Milton and Chaucer. So to know like how important is Stevenson. I think this is an important fact. In fact, we read, I'm not sure which book it was. We read a book. What do you read this year? Like, you don't read Mere Christianity this year. You read that last year.
We read that freshman year.
What did you read this year? Dr. Talbert, do you take theology with him?
You read the Bible, the slideshows, the whole show.
You do take that with him, and you read parts of the Bible. What else? Any other book? For theology, aren't you taking theology?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, anyway,
We don't get assigned those books.
all right, I can't remember what book it was, but in it, it talked about this book, Dr. Jekyll, and so, we added it to the reading list because of, that book. You need to know his reputation. I'll tell you the audience is youth. That's why if you were taking AT, we don't read this book before the AT exam, because it's not helpful. It doesn't help us, because it's not a book they would want you to know about. You do need to name some themes and characteristics. You gotta make sure your masks are on. Hypocrisy, you know what that is, and it's an important theme in the books. It is a novelette, which is a fancy word for a small, short novel. And it is in a genre of books called the double. The Prince and the Pauper by Mark Twain. It has two boys that look like each other and they switch places. Pudd'nhead Wilson by Mark Twain is like that. Edgar Allan Poe wrote a story called William Wilson, and it's creepy. This boy goes to a prep school, like a boarding school, and this new kid comes to school that looks just like him, and he's the same height, has same features, and nobody seems to notice it except him. And it's like this guy has a twin that's just like him. And I read it, enjoyed it, I don't remember much about beyond that, but, it is a, genre of books called the double. Can I go on? Alright, so what did he write? He wrote poems, for children. It's called, Children's Garden of Verse. He wrote essays, he wrote several novels. Do you remember anything, his name associated with any book? He wrote Kidnap, Treasure Island.
Oh, I've heard of that one.
Those are books written by Mark, Stevenson. He was a romantic, to kind of put it in perspective. He was an adventurer. He traveled because of his health. We'll get to that in a minute. And although you wouldn't say he's extremely unusual, for the time period he was. He actually dated a woman who was not a married woman, you know, and then Imogen married her. So, that's still not a good thing to do, to date somebody who's still married to somebody. It's not uncommon, unfortunately, anymore, but it was considered a terrible sin. He was a Calvinist, and we'll finish with this one. He condemned hypocrisy, so, I will give you the book on Monday,
It's not at all.
and, we'll begin reading it, actually reading it together.
I've been doing that all week. And Miss Flores told me after class, thinking I was being racist, people like